Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janaballabha Giridharidhari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janabal Laba Giridharidhari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Gyanachimarandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militang Yena Tasmai Sri Guruve Namaha Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Today we aim to take a look at Srimad Bhagavatam 9th Canto and also a bit of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita during Mahaprabhu's tour of South India. Tomorrow, we may be discussing more about Ayodhya. In central India, apparently, it's a Dham, so it looks like it's part of the topography. And we'll be discussing Ayodhya Dham in Vaikuntha, courtesy of Brihad Bhagavatamrita. Let's see if we can get to all that, because things may take unexpected turns. We begin by looking at the 9th canto, where there is a summary of Ram Lila. Now you may say that you prefer to hear just the Leelas. After all, the 9th canto is just a summary, quote unquote, just a summary. But if you will look at the 9th canto, chapter 10 and chapter 11, where Shukadeva Goswami speaks of Lord Ramchandra and his pastimes, and especially you look at the verses in combination with the purports, you'll see the importance of tattva, the proper scientific understanding of the Leelas. So we begin at the beginning of 9th Canto, chapter 10, where you find out that Ramchandra is coming in the Raghu dynasty. You know that. But that Raghu dynasty is coming from Katwanga Maharaj. Remember him from 2nd Canto Bhagavatam? He fought on behalf of the demigods against the asuras in the higher planets. And then the demigods were so pleased by his activities that they gave him a choice of benedictions. And he very wisely said, I'd like to know how much more time I have in this life. Now you might say, well, why is that so important? He should have asked for unlimited opulence. He should have asked for a submissive wife, or he should have asked for so many things. But why did he ask for knowing how much time he had left in his life? He's very smart. Although he wouldn't be so judged by contemporary standards. He knows that you can't hold on to the material body, and therefore, if you get some warning so you can prepare for the next body, that is very advantageous. So the demigods said to Katwanga, very interesting that you've asked that question, how much time you have left in that body, because actually you just have a moment left. So Katwanga Maharaj immediately left the heavenly planets and went down to earth and surrendered his consciousness, his existence fully to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He left the heavenly planets because he understood the material gratifications, the atmosphere in the heavenly planets is so materially intense that I want to give up my body in a more conducive place for my spiritual advancement. You may recall that in the 5th canto of Bhagavatam, the Devatas pray that if they have any punya, any pious activities, good karma left in their account, so to speak, they would like to take birth on earth, where their opportunities for self-realization will be much better. Life in the heavenly planets is too intensely gratifying. And so the Devatas seek to take birth on earth. And therefore you can understand why Katwanga Maharaj, knowing he had one more moment to live, immediately went to earth. So this is the start of the dynasty that Lord Ramchandra appeared in. And let's think about why Shukadeva Goswami's presentation is so important, although brief. We already hinted about the tattva being presented along with the Leela. The Leelas are very encapsulated. So you might tend to think, oh, I want to hear 1 or 2 hours of just pure Ram Leela. But Shukadeva Goswami has something else in mind for you. He wants to teach you something. And Prabhupada takes full advantage. We'll look at text 3 of the 10th chapter of the 9th canto. Tasyanu charitam rajan rishibish tatpadarshibihi shrutam hi varnitam bhuri traya sita pater mahu. O King Parikshit, the transcendental activities of Lord Ramchandra have been described by great saintly persons who have seen the truth. Because you have heard again and again about Lord Ramachandra, the husband of Mother Sita, I shall describe these activities only in brief Please listen. So again, you say, well, he's saying only in brief. Let's hear more extensively. But as I said, his speaking in brief is embedded in the most scientific bhakti knowledge, especially as amplified by Srila Prabhupada in his purports. So, just like with Mahabharata, everyone knows something from Ramayana in India, but often they're not able to distinguish the science from the mythology. In fact, they think it's all myth, but very colorful myth. Just like many scholars of Indology will compliment the Hindu myths. They're very colorful. They're very instructive. They touch both the head and the heart. These myths are very valuable for human society. We shouldn't have a pejorative or demeaning understanding of myths. Myths have value. They show essences of human existence, these myths. So we appreciate the Hindu myths. That notion is there in India and abroad, the new understanding. Whereas during the time of the British domination of India, the understanding was these outlandish Hindu tales are so gross and so far-fetched, they must have Christianity if they're going to be civilized. So that was some time ago. But now the Maya has morphed. Myths are very nice. Myths are very soothing. Myths are very good for you're getting insight into the human condition. But no, what does Shukadeva Goswami say? He's telling you, I'm not relaying any myths. I'm telling you what has been described by great saintly persons who have seen the truth. Rishibis Tattvadarshibhi, transcendental persons who are experienced, who have both Gyan, knowledge, and Vigyan, realization. I'm describing to you, Parikshit Maharaj, what they have said. In this way, as Prabhupada amplifies in his purport, you'll be spared from confusing Lord Ramchandra to be a mythological person and his activities to be myth. So this section is very valuable. Please note that down. Chapters 10 and 11 of the 9th canto. Take another look if you haven't read it in some time, because you'll get such a well-grounded understanding. Whereas if you just read the Ramayana, just like if you just read the Mahabharata without the guidance of the acharyas, you can miss so much of the transcendental impact. And one of the transcendental impacts that we hope to discuss tonight is the instruction from the acharyas that the best way to hear Ram Leela is not to pay attention to the display of extraordinary power, but to extract the sweetness. So that's going to be one of our themes tonight, because in order to understand the relationship between Krishna and Ram, you have to go for the sweetness. Because Rupa Goswami, in his Laghu Bhagavatamrita, explains that amongst the countless incarnations of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, there are 3 that are very special. He said he categorizes them as Pada Avasta. You see, all the incarnations of Godhead are equal, but they all don't display or manifest equally the potencies of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So the top 3 as you may have heard me explain before, in terms of displaying the original qualities of Godhead. Not that the others are deficient, mind you, they just don't show it. They don't show everything. Just like, for example, Rupa Goswami explains that there are 3 different ways that avatars appear in the material world. Some appear as if they have parents. And you know, of course, Krishna seems to appear from Vasudeva and Devaki, and Ram seems to appear from Dasarath. So that's one way. Another way is as an expansion of an expansion. Garbhodakashayi Vishnu appears as an expansion coming from Mahavishnu. And the third way is that the avatars seemingly appear out of nowhere, like Matsya and Kurma. But we should know that although the Supreme Personality of Godhead's appearance in this world is so dramatic, it's not that he's popping out of nowhere. He's always there eternally. But whether he and his Leela are manifest or unmanifest, that's another thing. So it's not that out of nowhere, out of nothingness, the Supreme Personality of Godhead appears. So Rupa Goswami explains that the 3 avatars that show the most are Lord Nrsingadev, Ramchandra, and Krishna. And of course, amongst those 3, Krishna is the original. And Krishna is the only one, generally speaking, who can give liberation to the demons he kills. Because Krishna is manifesting in full all the qualities of Godhead, so the demons that he kills become overwhelmed by the personalism of Krishna. Just like Shishupal would, he could talk straight. As a little boy, he would blaspheme Krishna. He was so wound up in his head about Krishna, and it was a very personal obsession. But even though the personal obsession that Shishupal had about Krishna was so intense, Narada Muni doesn't recommend that you follow that path. Still, Narada Muni exclaims in the 7th canto of Bhagavatam, "Oh, if I could only love Krishna with the intensity that these demons personally hate him." That shows you how a devotee can take gold from a filthy place. So Lord Nrsingadev is known as Prabhava Bhumi. Power. His Baba is power. And Lord Ramchandra, Rupa Goswami explains, is Madhurya Bhuma. Prabhava Bhuma and Madhurya Bhuma. The attractiveness increases with Lord Ram. But when you get to Krishna, Swayam Bhagavan, you find that Krishna is incomparable. We'll touch tomorrow upon how there is some sweetness in Ayodhya Dham, but Gopakumar in Brihad Bhagavatamrita can't get Braj out of his system. So first we're going to understand Tattva and why Shukadeva Goswami is doing what he's doing. And Prabhupada is really amplifying this point. You must hear about Lord Ram from someone who knows the science. Otherwise, if you hear from someone who is just blabbering ignorance, you'll become infected. Oh, the Hindu myths. Now, even someone may hear from an authorized source, but still think, oh, nice stories, nice myth. They make spiritual advancement because even though they don't really know about what they're hearing, they have heard from an authorized source. I can give the example of one of my sisters who I forgot decades ago, but in 1972, that's 50 years ago, when she was 14, I gave her a copy of Bhagavad Gita as it is. A few months later, I left for Prabhupada's full-time service. So she read it when she was 14, but she told me, I thought they were just nice stories, nice myth. But because she read from an authorized source, when she was 60, everything caught up with her. So this is the power of hearing from an authorized source, or the lack of power, in fact, the horrors created by hearing from an unauthorized source. I've told many of you about how during my university years at Yale, I wanted to study Bhagavad Gita. And they have a still world famous professor who was teaching that course. And he assigned a version of Bhagavad Gita that, well, after I purchased it from the required books for the course from the university bookshop, I took this version of Bhagavad Gita to my room and I looked at it. It had translations in the front and the scholar's commentary in the back. So I turned to the commentary and I read. Even though I knew nothing about Krishna, I read and reacted very strongly. I read, Krishna is a concept meant to satisfy both the intellectuals and the sentimentalists. So I remember just slamming the book shut. I think Super Soul saved me. I slammed the book shut and immediately tossed it in the rubbish bin, saying to myself, these British imperialists, because I was a British scholar, these British imperialist colonizers ruining the native people of India's book. So I promised myself, one day I'm going to find a genuine version of this book. So the effects of hearing from the right source are quite profound. So please understand that it's not just Hindu granny folklore. You have to hear from someone in parampara. You have to hear from someone in disciplic succession. This is science. So we continue with chapter 10 of the 9th canto, some comparisons or some attributes that both Krishna and Ram share. You'll see in text 4 of chapter 10 about the lotus feet being so delicate when they wander, when those feet wander through the forest. In the case of Lord Ramchandra, it's the Dandakaranya forest. And Srila Goswami is saying, Ramchandra wandered from one forest to another on his lotus feet which were so delicate that they were unable to bear even the touch of Sita's palms. The palms of Sita's hands are so soft, yet Ramchandra's feet were even softer. And what do you remember about Krishna when Krishna wanders through the Vrindavan forests? The young gopis at home feel pain thinking that Krishna's tender feet are walking on little stones or anything on the ground that would be even the slightest bit hard. Krishna's lotus feet are so soft that even when a new leaf, a freshly grown tree leaf, touches his lotus feet change colors. They're affected even by the touch of the softest leaf. Let's hear a little bit about the effect of Ram Katha. In this case, Sita Katha, but as heard by Ravana and as relayed by Shurpanakha, the hideous and ugly witch, Shurpanakha. She's speaking about Sita, the glories of Sita to Ravana. But what's her purpose? She's trying to arouse Ravana's lust by describing the beauty of Sita. She should be yours. She's only meant for your enjoyment. Why is she with Ram? In other words, separate the pleasure potency from the ultimate source, which is impossible. And we'll hear more about how impossible that is. So let's understand, she's such an offender because she's so materialistic. Her purpose makes what she's saying so polluted. And Ravana eats up what she's saying. He's heard through his demoniac consciousness. He's heard, and he develops lust for Sita by hearing the materialistic presentation of Shurpanakha. So that shows you the effects of even hearing about Krishna, Radha, Ram, Sita from the wrong person for the wrong motivations. We told you that one of our themes today is going to be that we should taste the astonishing sweetness in Ram's pastimes, his leelas, not so much his display of power. That's an instruction from the Acharyas, especially Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. And we'll go to chapter 11. We'll jump ahead a bit. And there, Shukadeva Goswami helps us to see that there's something more going on in Ram Lila than just a display of power. If you're going to understand the significance, the full significance of Lord Krishna, you need to start appreciating the sweetness more than the power in Ram Lila. Because remember, Krishna, Swayam Bhagavan, is the full manifestation of Godhead. Remember, Advaitam, Achyutam, Anadam, Anantarupam. Lord Brahma teaches that Advaita, non-different, all the avatars are qualitatively the same, but they don't all reveal what's within. Achyutam. Achyuta because even though, especially Krishna, even more than Ram, gives himself fully to the devotee, still Krishna's self is intact. This is a deep meaning of achyuta given by Jiva Goswami. Sometimes we say achyuta means Krishna never falls under the influence of the illusory energy. Sometimes we say achyuta means that he's the infallible enjoyer. But I really like this definition of achyuta given by Jiva Goswami, that especially Krishna, you'll see in Ram dedicates himself to his devotees, but more so in Krishna. Krishna gives of himself completely to his devotee, his pure devotee. Yet still Krishna has a self. So this is achyuta. Advaitam, Achyutam, Anadam, Anantarupam. No beginning, unlimited forms, the origin. Purana Purusha, the oldest, yet Navayovanamcha, the freshest youth. Another way of understanding Purana Purusha is older than the Purusha avatars, or beyond even the Purusha avatars, came first before the Purusha avatars. Purana Purusha. So we've been talking about sweetness as compared to
power on.
As compared to displays of power. And you know that especially in Lord Nrsingadev, you see utmost power. Still, there's affection there in Lord Nrsingadev, in his dealings with Prahlad especially. But in Ram Lila, you see more affection. We'll talk about what Ram went through, evidently, to rescue Sita. And the dealings between Ram and his brothers, who are all Vishnu Tattva. His dealings with Bharat, his dealings with Lakshmana, his dealings with his monkey soldiers. But when you talk about Krishna's dealings with his devotees, you're in yet another category. So, text 20 of chapter 11 of the 9th canto. Nedam yasho raghupate surayacha yachnayata lila tanor adhika samya vimukta dhamnaha raksho vido jaladi bandhanam astrapugai kim tasya shatru hanane kapaya sahaya. Listen to this instruction. Lord Ramachandra's reputation for having killed Ravana with showers of arrows at the request of the demigods, and for having built a bridge over the ocean, does not constitute the factual glory of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Ramachandra. I repeat, does not constitute the factual glory of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Ramachandra, whose spiritual body is always engaged in various pastimes. Lord Ramachandra has no equal or superior, and therefore he had no need to take help from the monkeys to gain victory over Ravana. So if it's so that his power Leela, so to speak, is not his factual glory, then what is? Ah, now you're getting close to inquiring about Krishna, because there is love in separation in Ram Leela between Ram and his pleasure potency, Sita, which gives you, there's a glimpse of that, which gives you insight into the utmost display of love and separation as demonstrated by Radha and Krishna. So this is why Shukadeva Goswami is saying he didn't have to take help from the monkey soldiers to gain victory over Ravana. He didn't have to build a bridge over the ocean. He didn't have to kill Ravana himself at the request of the demigods. These are not his greatest glories. Now, before we go deeper into the love and separation between Ram and Sita, let's take a look at Chaitanya Leela. And we're going to get some insight by way of a South Indian Brahmana who has a very interesting bhajan, a daily spiritual practice in feeling separation. And Lord Chaitanya is going to witness that Brahmana's performance of bhakti. So this Brahmana is described by Kaviraj Goswami as a Mahajan, an authority on Ram. And also he's virakta, very detached from material existence. So Lord Chaitanya, of course, you know, is in South India touring. And so he's invited to lunch by this Brahmana, a great devotee and an authority on Lord Sri Ram. So what could be going on with such a personality? He invited Mahaprabhu, and Mahaprabhu went to his house to take lunch. But Mahaprabhu noticed the lunch is not prepared. The food is still uncooked. The Brahmana hadn't cooked. So what's going on here? So Mahaprabhu inquires, my dear sir, Mahashoy, please tell me why you haven't cooked. It's already noontime. So the Brahmana replies, revealing his bhajan, his form of worship and separation. My dear Lord, we are living in the forest. For the time being, we cannot get all the ingredients for cooking. When Lakshmana brings all the vegetables, fruits, and roots from the forest, Sita will do the necessary cooking. So what was Mahaprabhu's response? He was very satisfied to hear about this particular upasana, this particular mode of worship, feeling the separation and meditating on the pastimes. So Mahaprabhu was satisfied, noting that this Brahmana is really feeling association with Ram Leela, and he's absorbed in the pastimes. So after a while, the Brahmana quickly makes arrangements for cooking. Lord Chaitanya ended up taking lunch at about 3 p.m. But meanwhile, the Brahmana didn't eat. He didn't eat on time or late. He was fasting. And so while he's fasting, Mahaprabhu asks him, why are you so happy? Why are you so unhappy? Why are you so worried? Why are you fasting? And the Brahmana tells him, confides in him, I have no reason to live. I shall give up my life by entering either fire or water. Why? Jagat Mata, the mother of the universe. Mahalakshmi, the supreme goddess of fortune, has been touched by the demon Ravana. I'm so troubled by hearing this. He's impressing upon Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu how the situation is causing me so much pain. The mother of the universe, Jagat Mata, the Mahalakshmi, Sita Thakurani, has been touched by Ravana. I don't know how this could be, but it seems to have happened. I can't go on living. My body is burning, but I still don't give up my life. Mahaprabhu seeks to console him. Please don't think in this way. You're a learned Pandit. Don't you know the tattva, in other words? Consider the tattva. Mahaprabhu explains, and we should be mindful about this explanation. He says, Sita Devi, the dearmost wife of the Supreme Lord Ramchandra, certainly has a spiritual form full of bliss. No one can see her with material eyes, for no materialist has such power. So if a materialist can't see Sita Devi, how can a materialist touch Sita Devi? Keep that in mind, please. So Mahaprabhu explains, when Ravana kidnapped her, he kidnapped only her material. He kidnapped only her material form of illusion, Maya Sita. And Mahaprabhu elaborated that as soon as Ravana arrived to grab Sita, the real Sita disappeared and sent Ravana an illusory material form. And the underlying principle, Lord Chaitanya explained, is that spiritual substance, the spiritual reality, is never within the scope of the material conception. And this Leela demonstrates that. So at that time, Mahaprabhu just told the Brahmana, have faith in my words. Don't burden your mind any longer with this misconception, even though there was such a powerful worship going on in separation, which did please Mahaprabhu, the Brahmana's immersion in the Leela of Ram. So Prabhupada wants us to understand that this is actually the process of spiritual understanding. We follow the footsteps of great authorities coming down in the Parampara system. If we approach a bona fide acharya and keep faith in his words, spiritual realization will be easy. Otherwise, it's very difficult. And understanding Krishna is more difficult than understanding Ram. Now, what are some popular misunderstandings of Ram? Why did he abandon Sita? Why did he abandon Lakshman? This is immoral. He left Sita while she was expecting Lava and Kusha. On the one hand, you say that Ram is the epitome, the exemplar of duty consciousness. Yet on the other hand, look how he treated Sita. But those who understand the bhakti science know that Ram only superficially left Sita, only superficially left Lakshman. The Lord can never be separated from his pleasure potency. So unless we hear Ram Leela from an authorized source, we'll get bewildered. I've heard it in India, and especially I've heard it in the West. But anyway, the Brahmana, he did have faith in the words of Mahaprabhu and started eating. And in this way, he saved his own life by following the words of Mahaprabhu so that he could eat and also so that he could understand that it's impossible for anything material to touch Sita Devi. So Mahaprabhu went onward and he was at the Rameshwar temple. And he was listening there to a narration from the Kurma Purana. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur explains that only a small part of the Kurma Purana is now available. So the Kurma Purana was talking about chaste ladies. Chaste in the Western world is practically an unknown word. In India, it still has currency, but fading fast. But in the West, I've tried it. I've asked, do you know this word chaste? For example, in New Zealand, I've asked that, and I just watch. Chaste. Sounds like is that something from the medieval times? So Mahaprabhu is hearing from the Kurma Purana how Sita Devi is supreme amongst chaste women. Other examples cited are as the topmost chaste ladies. Sita Devi is number one. And then there's also Draupadi and even the wife of Ravana, Mandodari. And Gandhari, you know, from Mahabharata. So in describing these chaste ladies after the death of Ravana, when his wives are lamenting, especially his chief wife, Mandodari, I always remember Srila Prabhupada explaining something that sounds so exotic to contemporary ears. He says that a chaste woman develops mystic power. So now we hear what the Kurma Purana says. When Ravana came to kidnap Sita Devi, Agni Dev, the Devata in charge of fire, intervened, and he transported Sita Devi to his abode. Some say that from his abode, Agni Dev's abode, she went to where Parvati was. In any case, she was protected from the hands of Ravana. And so Ravana had kidnapped a Maya Sita, a stand-in, a mirage. So Mahaprabhu was very satisfied to hear this because this is what he explained to the Brahmana who was feeling such agony about the possibility that Sita Devi had been touched by Ravana. So the Chaitanya Charitamrita explains how Agni took away the real Sita and brought her to the place of Parvati, and then delivered to Ravana a Maya form, a mirage. And then you know what happened after Ravana was killed, and there was some question of Sita Devi's chasteness, and she entered the fire, and that was the illusory Sita who entered the fire. And then Agni Dev delivers the real Sita who walks out of the fire. So this is all Leela. You're not dealing with ordinary living entities. You're dealing with the Lord and his pleasure potency, which can never be separated. So Mahaprabhu thought about that Brahmana. The name of the Brahmana was Ramdas Vipra. And he asked the priests at Rameshwar, can I take the original copy of the page of the Kuma Purana where these verses describe what really happened to Sita? And so they said yes. They made a copy and they gave the original to Mahaprabhu, the original page, because Mahaprabhu wanted to convince Ramdas Vipra, the Brahmana, here you see it. This is the original. Here you see what really happened to Sita Devi. So stop your agonizing lamentation. So Mahaprabhu went back and he showed the Brahmana the verse, which described just what we already said. When Ramchandra tested the body of Sita, it was the false illusory Sita that entered the fire. And then the original Sita came and was reunited with Lord Ramchandra. But were they ever separated? No, this is play. This is all for Ramchandra's pleasure. And we'll talk more about that. But meanwhile, note how happy Ramdas Vipra was to receive the original leaf manuscript. And he fell down at the feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and began to cry. When will we get that opportunity to fall at the feet of Lord Chaitanya and cry? And Ramdas Vipra said a very interesting thing, very significant for us. Upon receiving that original manuscript leaf, he said, you are Sakshad Sri Raghunandana. You are Lord Ramchandra himself. He says that to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. You've come in the dress of a sannyasi, but you're Lord Ramchandra himself. You may know the Shadbhuj form of Lord Chaitanya, 6 arms, 2 arms as Krishna, 2 arms as Ramchandra, and 2 arms as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So just as some devotees will see Mahaprabhu as Krishna, some will see him as Radha Krishna combined, and some will see him as Ramchandra. They're all correct, but the most deep understanding, the most profound understanding is, as we say, Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Radha Krishna Nahayanya. Lord Chaitanya is Radha Krishna combined. So Ramdas Vipra tells Mahaprabhu, you saved me from such an unhappy condition. Now, it's not material unhappiness that he was saved from. It was spiritual agony, something very difficult to understand from the neophyte platform. So now Ramdas Vipra says, I never had the opportunity to give you a real lunch. So please take a full lunch today. And so he prepared such a feast for Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Where shall we go to now? What nectar do we have in store? Do we have time to deal with to go deeper into the love and separation as demonstrated by Ram and Sita. What do you think?
Yes, Maharaj, please go ahead.
Mm. So we talked about Lord Ramchandra's real name and fame. And we spoke about how his Leela has a material side. Now, how can a spiritual Leela have a material side? Instruction on how to live in the material world peacefully by being very duty conscious. Ram went through so much ordeal to protect his wife. As Prabhupada explains often, Ramchandra could have married upon Sita's kidnapping. He could have married millions of Sitas, but he stuck to one wife, Ekapatni Vrata, to teach all those who want to learn that you get out of the material world by commitment and duty. Commitment and duty is not the ultimate in bhakti, but it's a necessary path forward. So Ramchandra is showing that grihastha life is a dharma. It's not just a feeling of temporary material attraction. It's about adopting a dharma, a code, a standard. And through that standard, in thick and thin, one makes advancement. But if you do it the contemporary style and not the Vedic standard, the contemporary style is it's all about how you feel at the moment. Whereas the Dharma standard is it's all about what the Dharma prescribes. Now that sounds oppressive to the contemporary ear. What about me, my self-esteem, my feelings? But the goal of Dharma is that you have purified feelings, purified esteem, purified intelligence. So without understanding the purification, it all sounds like restriction. And especially people in the West don't like restriction. They think they are free. The slightest tap on the shoulder and they resent it like a snake that's been kicked. Who are you? How dare you interfere with me? Protest. So Ramchandra is showing how to execute Dharma. He went through so much to regain Sita. He's showing the living entities that household life isn't always easy. In fact, it has its ordeals, it has its tough times, but you have to stick it out for your purification and emerge on the other side a better person. So that's the material side. The spiritual side, though, is that Ram and Sita can never be separated. And once you understand this in Ram Leela, then you become more eligible to understand the ultimate in Krishna Leela. So this Vipralamba, this love and separation, is a feature of the Hladini Shakti, the pleasure potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I'll repeat. This Vipralamba, love and separation, is a feature of the Hladini Shakti, the pleasure potency of Krishna, which occurs in Madhurya Ras. But as Mahaprabhu explained to Murari Gupta, who, as we know, is Sakshat Hanuman, is directly Hanuman, Mahaprabhu was urging Murari Gupta, we know you're a great Ram Bhakta, but what can compare to Krishna's sweetness? Nothing can. Give up your focus on Ram and just concentrate on Krishna. The same thing happened between Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami and their brother Anupam. They were telling him, let us worship Krishna together. Let us think of Krishna together. Krishna is the essence of all sweetness. Join us, brother. But in both cases of Anupama and Murari Gupta, these Ram Bhaktas couldn't take their head. They said, we cannot remove our head from the lotus feet of Ram. And in the case of Murari Gupta, Mahaprabhu told him, I know you couldn't do this. I was just wanting to demonstrate your great dedication to Ram. He said, this is the symptom of real love, that you can't separate yourself from the beloved, even no matter if you tried. So we can talk more about the love and separation. There was no question of distress for Ram, no question of anxiety. This is all Leela. The more the feelings of separation increase, the more pleasurable the taste is. You see, this is not material existence. In material life, when you're separated from what is dear to you, it's agony. You don't want to undergo that. But in spiritual life, in pure spiritual life, love of Krishna in separation is the most intense experience, even more than meeting Krishna. This is essentially what's going on at the deepest levels of Gopi Leela. And so by seeing it in Ram, by seeing it in Sitaram and their affairs, you can start to get a glimpse of the Radha Krishna Leela intensities. Ram wants to enjoy separation, feeling love and separation. And through those feelings of separation, Ram and Sita are more together than ever. That's the mystery of Vipralamba. Ram's also giving some material lessons, though. And he's saying, when you become attached to a material situation, this is what you got to go through. Material attachment isn't a very nice thing. It seems good at first, but you can look materially at what I went through. This is what you signed up for. And you have to do your duty all the way to the end. So when Sita enters into the ground, the Shastra explains in Bhagavatam how Ram was grief-stricken. But this is all pleasure. It's hard for us to understand, but it's all pleasure. So tomorrow, we're going to talk about Ayodhya, because Lord Ramchandra's headquarters are Ayodhya, which seems to be in central India, as well as in Vaikuntha. And we'll talk about Gopakumar in Brihad Bhagavatamrita on his way from Vaikuntha, the realm of Lord Narayan, to Ayodhya, the topmost portion of Vaikuntha, but he's still not satisfied. All right. Any questions?
Thank you very much, Maharaj. That was an insightful class, as usual. And you actually combined the tattva, the philosophy, as well as the Leela as well. And that was quite interesting. So I'll enable devotees to unmute themselves. And if you can raise your hands. So first question is coming from Bharadwaj Prabhu. Please go ahead, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, Dandavad Pranam. Maharaj, thank you very much for a very insightful lecture. Thank you. Maharaj, I actually missed the definition that you gave for Achyuta, that Jiva Goswami's definition. Could you please elaborate a little bit more on that, Maharaj?
Advaitam, Achyutam, Anandam, Anantarupam. Achyuta is a name of Krishna referring to the fact that he's Britya Vatsala. He is showing such tender love and care for his devotees, as Ramchandra did. But even though he gives himself fully, especially as Krishna does, he gives himself fully to his devotee, still his self is intact. So in other words, the extent that Krishna gives himself to his devotee would make you think he's got nothing left of himself. He's given it all. But although he has given it all, still his self is intact, so to speak.
Thank you, Maharaj. Thank you.
Thank you, Maharaj. The next question is coming from Pundarikaksha Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, Dandavad Pranam Maharaj, all glories to you. Maharaj, I was trying to understand the feeling of separation that you have explained very nicely. Thank you, Maharaj. It was really heart-touching. But I was bewildering with say, I can understand now that Lord Ram was enjoying more in the separation with Mother Sita. But how to understand Lord Ram engaging all the Vanaras and, for example, Jatayu was losing his life when fighting against Ravana. So when Lord Ram knows that Mother Maya Sita only was taken by, so why Lord Ram has to engage all his devotees into these pains and all the problems, Maharaj? Can you please elaborate?
These associates of Lord Ram are not material. They're not ordinary entities. Just like Arjuna's bewilderment. He was truly bewildered, but that was arranged by Krishna to teach us what is bewilderment. So Arjuna was really bewildered, but he's playing a part for our benefit and for Krishna's pleasure. Now I am totally confused. I've lost all composure due to weakness. Tell me what my duty is. He's really bewildered by Krishna's will for our benefit and for Krishna's pleasure. So similarly, Jatayu and all these other associates, they're participating in the Leela. There's no material life for them, and there's no material life for Lord Ram. There's no material life for Sita. But you can learn from Jatayu, for example, how he gave his all in all. It looked like he failed. From one point of view, he did fail. He couldn't stop Ravana. But he pleased the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And Ramchandra personally, himself, performed the funeral ceremony for Jatayu. Agahanta, is that a hand up?
Thank you, Maharaj. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj. This is actually Thakur Sharangadas. My humble obeisances to you. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you very much for relaying Ram Leela on this auspicious day of Adivas of Ramanavami. My question was, why do we have that mindset that this is grandma's folklore, while we don't consider this as a history, although all the place is right here in India and Ram Janmabhoomi has been established. So that's one thing. And also in Chaitanya Lila, the place of Ramdas Vipra's house and the distance that Mahaprabhu traveled to find Kurma Puran, and then he traveled back, all this has been researched and established. But still, why we think that it's all folklore?
We think it's all folklore because of miseducation. We believe in engineering. We believe in IT. We believe in accounting. But Ram Leela, good for the grandparents. And moral stories to help the children. Factual? Please. It's barbaric to think that this is factual. So because we have been miseducated, just like I described what happened to me when I first wanted to read Bhagavad Gita. Fortunately, I didn't swallow the poison. How much better my life would have been at that point if I had uncovered at that time a real Bhagavad Gita. So this shows you how rare it is, the opportunity to be connected to the parampara. How rare it is to have a genuine connection to the line coming from Krishna through Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Don't take it for granted.
Thank you very much.
The next question, which is coming from Sankarshan Rama Prabhu.
Hi, Krishna Gurudev. I was wondering, the past time you just mentioned regarding Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he was visiting the Brahmana, and he started talking about the pastime of Lord Ram, and Mahaprabhu was happy to hear his sentiment of what he was explaining. I just wanted to check, ask you, if we hear someone talking like that, so how to differentiate whether the person or the devotee we are talking to, he is really experiencing the pastime, or he's just trying to, he's faking it up.
Normally a devotee, if truly on that level, wouldn't reveal it. As you may have read in Nectar of Devotion, it says that even someone highly advanced will mostly act according to external sadhana. Such a devotee will not broadcast, just like when Prabhupada would go into ecstasy. He wouldn't talk about it. He would get off the Vyasasana and go to his room and wouldn't talk about it. He wanted you to see his ecstasies in his books. He said, my purports contain my devotional ecstasies. So I don't know what your reference point is for the question, because ordinarily, no devotee who's truly advanced would just publicly display his bhajan like that. But you see, Ramdas Vipra is in the association of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who later Ramdas Vipra realizes is Sakshat Raghunandana. He says, you're directly Lord Ramchandra. So this is an unusual situation. But as Narottam Das Thakur instructs, a devotee at the advanced level keeps his personal bhajan secret. You don't parade it around. You don't announce it But this Ramdas Vipra was in the association of the personality of Godhead, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and there's nothing to hide. And Mahaprabhu, Chaitanya Charitamrita says, was satisfied by the upasana, by the method of worship that Ramdas Vipra demonstrated. He was absorbed in the pastimes. All right.
Thank you, Maharaj. The next question is coming from Kunja Mandana Mataji and the other devotees there.
Yes.
Hi, Krishna Gurudev. Thank you for class. I was just wondering, you were describing how Sita Devi is the most, one of the most chaste women.
The most.
The most chaste woman. I was just wondering then, why did Lord Ramchandra leave her?
Aha! I knew it was coming. Didn't I already go over this point? That he actually never left her. He never left Lakshman, but superficially, for the sake of enjoying pastimes. Let me read from a purport here. The separation of Lord Ramchandra from Sita is spiritually understood as Vipralamba, which is an activity of the Hladini potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, belonging to the Sringara Ras, the mellow of conjugal love in the spiritual world. In the spiritual world, the Supreme Personality of Godhead has all the dealings of love, displaying the symptoms called Sattvika, Sanjari, Vilapa, Murcha, and Unmada. These symptoms, by the way, are described in Nectar Devotion, Chaitanya Charitamrita. They are scientific symptoms of love of Krishna. We continue. Thus, when Lord Ramchandra was separated from Sita, all these spiritual symptoms were manifested. The Lord is neither impersonal nor impotent. You get that? Because behind our doubts is impersonalism. How could the Supreme Absolute Truth have such characteristics, such activities? The Lord is neither impersonal nor impotent. Rather, he is Satchidananda Vigraha, the eternal form of knowledge and bliss. Thus, he has all the symptoms of spiritual bliss. Now get this. Feeling separation from one's beloved is also an item of spiritual bliss. As explained by Srila Srup Damodar Goswami, and you'll find this verse several times in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Radha Krishna Pranaya Vikritir Hladini Shakti. The dealings of love between Radha and Krishna are displayed as of the Lord. Lord is the original source of all pleasure. Materially, he's showing you're going to be attached. Anytime there's material attachment, you'll suffer. He's demonstrating that while relishing love and separation with Sita. So yes, this is preparation for understanding what's going on in Krishna Lila. So you can just see, just like you asked, why did he leave Sita? And that's Ram Lila bewildering us. What to speak of Krishna Lila? You know the accusations against Krishna for being immoral, so on and so forth. So this is why we need to hear about Ram and Krishna, especially from authentic sources. So I see a question here. What was the lesson Ram taught by immediately leaving to the forest upon being requested to do so? He's teaching duty and commitment, something alien to most of the world these days. He's teaching the power of, more than the power of honor, he's teaching the power of injunction, dharma. My father has ordered, I will go. Immediately. And the Shastra uses Ramchandra's immediate departure for the forest as an example of how the genuine disciple carries out the order of the Guru. Just like a liberated soul can immediately give up the body, just like Ramchandra immediately left for the forest, similarly, the genuine disciple acts on the order of the spiritual master. All right. It's been very wonderful.
Maharaj, there is one or two more questions there just before in the chat window. Do you want to take those as well? So Sayak Prabhu has written, my question that Ramdas and Murari Gupta, they had a natural attraction towards a particular avatar of Lord. How can we develop that attachment to any particular avatar of Lord?
We are servants of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And by serving the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, that means by engaging in the mission of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we gain entrance into our relationship with Krishna. So the gateway in this age of Kali, the gateway to Krishna Lila is through Gaura Lila. And our relationship to Gaura Lila is Dasya, servant of Mahaprabhu. And by that service to Mahaprabhu, is the gateway to all the rasas with Krishna. So yes, we are developing attachment for Gauranga Nitai. Nitai Gauranga.
Thank you very much, Maharaj. That was a very interesting question and answer session. Brief answers, but we're to the point. Thank you very much. And we are looking forward to your lecture again tomorrow. Just a note for all the devotees. I think some of the devotees were not able to join because of the capacity, but we will also do a live streaming tomorrow on YouTube so that those devotees who are not able to join in person, they can watch the video on YouTube. Thank you very much, Maharaj. And to show our gratitude, let us chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra once again loudly. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Rama, Hare Hare.
His Holiness Devamrita Swami Maharaj ki
Jai.
Hare Krishna.